heavier jig heads, maybe 3/8 to half with a jerk bait, plastic jerk bait. Please don't judge me on my spelling. 3/8 to half ounce chatterbaits. We can also, remember guys, we can also pull out the old popping cork. And what are we gonna do to get their attention? We're gonna make the noise, but now we're gonna have 4 feet of leader instead of 12 inches. So if you notice, other than your walk the dog baits, all of these things, this is what I love about this presentation, is all of these things can be used depending on the depth and depending on the size. So if you have confidence in throwing jerk baits with 16th and 8th ounce jig heads, why wouldn't you just continue that and just go drop down to a heavier jig head, go 1/4 ounce to 3/8 or 3/8 to half, or even down here, now you can go from half ounce to 3/4 ounce. The mistake we make when we're fishing a plastic on a jig head is what? We don't have it heavy enough to where it hits the bottom. It's very critical that it hits the bottom. Why? Because when it hits the bottom, it makes a puff in the sand. It makes a puff in the grass. And as soon as you pull it out, jerking it again, it makes another puff. And so it's puff, puff, puff. And what is that redfish, that trout, that snook, whatever, it thinks that there's something hopping along the bottom, and guess what? They eat it. Anybody have any questions? Yes, sir. A loop knot, great question. So I use a loop knot on everything here. Okay, the loop knot that I use is a uni knot. Even though a lot of these lures come with a snap ring. Comes with a snap ring, I still tie a loop on here. And the reason why is it, gives me that much more action. Remember this, when you're fishing a jig head, small. Remember this, when you tie a loop knot on here, if we tied this straight to the hook, and let's say we're over at the Fishbites truck, if this is tied straight to the hook, as it's sinking, it can't rotate because there's not a loop, so it's sinking like this. Because the mono is dragging it down. There's drag in the mono, or the leader, as it's falling. However, if we tie a loop knot, now the jig head can rotate in the loop and head for the bottom. So it's gonna sink even faster. Now, if you're offshore and you're fishing, or you're fishing something where you're a little more vertical, what ends up happening is it even sinks even faster because of the loop. Now your line is like this. Got it? That's a great question. Anybody else have a question? It just depends on which one it is, but remember, in salt water, there's a lot of baits that are designed for fresh, like the Berkeley Stena. The Stena was designed by Hank Cherry, won the Bassmaster Classic 2 years in a row, 3 years ago and 4 years ago. It looks just like a long minnow. It has a profile, I don't have anyone in here. But anyway, it has this long profile, and on the back side, in the very end, it has 2 like fins, which allows it to glide. That bait in fresh water, it suspends slowly, and then when you twitch it, it'll go this way and then turn around and go up like this. What I've seen it do in salt water is it literally, you twitch it like this, and instead of it staying in that zone that it was designed to stay in freshwater, because freshwater is more buoyant, it starts doing this. That's not a bad technique around these places, because you can twitch it a couple times, and and it sinks down, and then it's like froze, and then as it starts to do this, like, is it okay to run and be safe? That's when the redfish and trout will eat it.
So it'll sink down to a certain point before it's soft there?
Correct. Correct. A lot, and it'll say, when you go inside here and you look at the boxes, a lot of times it'll say on the box, 2 to 3 foot depth, you know? So keep that in mind. And a lot of that is explained on the box when you're looking at it. All right, so color is certainly a part of what we do. So remember this, you're fishing tannic water. You're gonna wanna fish whites, chartreuses, golds, things that have a significant flash. You can have bone and chartreuse. You can have bone and gold, you know? I mean, a variety of different cool colors.
I'm fishing off St. Mark's Lighthouse out on the flats.
Gin clear conditions.
In some places, and then others not.
So clear conditions, I want you to match the hatch as best as you can. Green back, silver sides, white belly. It needs to look as natural as what the bait that's swimming by there. If you get a lot of runoff up there, then maybe what you want to do is where you got it, it's got a little tannic stain to it, switch over to bone, switch over to chartreuse, switch over to something that has some gold flash. Copper's really good. You know, a gold spoon instead of a silver spoon if it's not tannic. A copper spoon instead of a silver spoon in gin clear water. Okay? You can throw, you know, greens and silvers and whites when the water's real clear. You know, so, something like this. That would be great in a color. Look at how this would look real natural over white sand. You see? To give you a good idea. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
You use mono for a leader, or?
Yes.
Okay.
So I usually use 5 feet of mono on everything. I'll give you a great example. Many years ago, I was with Rapala, and I'd been with Rapala for a long time, and I took the president of Rapala to my house in the Bahamas. It's in the month of January, and we get these great big mutton snappers in real shallow water. And the way it kind of works is that when the high tide comes, incubates the flats of 3 feet of water, and when all that warm water falls off into 6, 12, 30 feet of water, these snappers all get right there. It's the coolest thing you've ever seen in life. So we go, and I got 4 rods in the boat. 3 rods filled with mono, 10-pound spin mono. They all have the same 20-pound fluorocarbon leader. They all have the same 1/4 ounce jig head or 3/8 ounce jig head. We all put the same plastic. Back then, there was a bait called Trigger X that Rapala made to compete against Fishbites, to compete against Gulp. Since then, it's gone. It was a disaster for them. We don't need to even get into that. But the stuff worked pretty good, so we're using this stuff. And we stop at the spot, and here's the president. So, of course, nobody's going to grab a rod till after he grabs one. So he reaches over. I got 3 with mono, 1 with braid. He grabs the 1 with braid for obvious reasons, right? Better, 0 stretch, you can feel the bite, blah, blah, blah. So he throws. I said, Mac, throw right there. So he throws. One guy throws 20 feet to the left of him. Another guy throws 20 feet to the right of him. I wait. The 2 guys that have got the mono rods doubled up. Boom. They both reel in. Both have 15-pound mud snappers. Now remember, same jig head, same shrimp, same length of leader, same diameter of leader, 20-pound leader. So we drift through the place, go back around. Here we go, do it again. Nobody grabs a rod. He grabs the braided line, throws there, no bite. The other 2 guys, they throw this way and this way. Nobody gonna throw next to the boss. You know, piss his ass off. Both of them hooked up out here. I'm in the back of the boat, and I throw out the back of the boat where we already drifted over the fish, and I'm hooked up, triple hookup. So I see him we drift through the place, I see him put his hook on the hook keeper, and he kind of slams it into the rod holder. And he goes, Murph, What am I doing wrong? I gotta know. Now we got 5 snappers like this in the boat, and he ain't even got a bite yet. And I go, you're using braid. He says, bullshit. I said, I promise. He says, you're telling me it's 24 feet of water. You're telling me they're seeing the line. I go, 150%. And he goes, no way. And I go, I'll bet you my contract. And he's like, nope, because it was a lot. I mean, he was gonna have to pay me double. And nope. So I said, here, go back around. Now we've already fished this place 2 times. This is the 3rd drift through this place. And I said, just humor me here, boss. Try this with the mono. I gave him my rod. He throws, nobody else even throws. And as soon as it hits, I said, let it sink a second. He thought it was something he was doing wrong. He hadn't even got a chance to put it in gear. He's getting a bite. And he goes, are you serious? I go, I promise. So he fished, and I still think he didn't believe me. And it's like, why am I'm sitting in the back of the boat thinking, why is this guy paying me all this money to not to want to listen to what I'm telling you? I know this is 100%. This is not 100%. This is 150%. Clear mono, 10-pound mono. But the key was, in 30 feet, they would see the line because it's dark green braided line. And they knew it was up. They just knew. It's clear. And when you get 60 feet, it doesn't matter now that you're using braid, you know? So he catches a few more fish. We go to a new spot, and I go to hand him the braided line. And he looks at me. I go, oh, you want to try the braid? I know you still don't believe me. And he goes, no, I believe you. And so I use the braid, the guy he's paying all the money to, and I can't catch anything, you know? But I wasn't sure exactly where we were gonna stop until we got there, and that's why I took 1 rod with braid, just in case we had to go to 40 feet of water to get a bite. We'd still get a bite on the mono, but then what would end up happening, we would be losing fish because it's only 10-pound mono, and you're fishing straight up and down then, and all of that stretch. So I brought a braided rod just in case we needed to stop some of these big fish.